Welcome to the Tudor Dixon podcast. We have a treat for you today because you have all seen this kind of faith and culture battleground going on in our country right now. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard the story of Bevelyn B. Williams. She is the woman who was arrested for protesting at one of the abortion clinics. And we get to have her on today so that we can hear her story. She was actually put in jail by the Biden-Harris administration and pardoned. And you have a new movie, and there's just all this great stuff going on, which is a testimony to Christ and his leading. So tell us your story, and thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to just share. I mean, it's a surreal story, and I thank God that I made it through that. It was probably one of the most traumatic things I've ever experienced in my life, but it was worth it. And if I could rewind time, I'd do it again. So I can't start from the super duper beginning, but I can at least say I could start from like 2019.
Well, let's talk about really quick. I wanted to have you on today because you do have a film coming out about it, and that is extremely exciting. It's called Pardon Me, the Bevelyn B. Williams story. So that's going to be coming out on August 15th. And I just want to say that as I was preparing for this podcast and reading your story, I was excited because I think that this is the behind the scenes story of your life, is the story that people don't know. You know, they see the images on TV, they see the story of, okay, you know, you're going into jail, you have a little girl, you have a husband that's waiting outside. But the journey that got you there, to me, the journey of faith and how God worked in your life is so incredibly powerful, is something that I think young people need to hear. Because when you were talking, I know you had that long testimony that you have on the website out there, but when you were talking about what you thought growing up, that was the most impactful part to me, because you said you had a life that was very challenging, and then you were told by your dad that guys only want one thing, and it shaped sort of how you saw the world, and then God turned that around.
Right.
That to me is amazing. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So you want to go all the way back to when I was a kid.
I mean, I kind of think that without hearing how you have gone through this yourself, I mean, you've had abortions, and that to me is incredibly powerful, because I think I've talked to so many women who have had an abortion and felt like, I don't have value now. But look at what that has done in your life to create a warrior.
Right. Okay, I love that, actually. I think that's amazing because, well, what I'll say is this. In 2019, when Governor Cuomo had legalized abortion, that's when I really decided to, and I'm saying this for a reason, that's when I really decided, it's an issue and I need to address it. But a lot of the circle backs of my childhood happened from me being obedient to that moment. And what I can say is my first abortion was when I was 15. Okay. My dad at the time, I think he was trying to protect me. I don't think he understood the fullness of what it means to get an abortion. And I don't think I was or he was prepared for the depression and just like the turmoil that comes with making such a big decision like that to remove a kid out of your womb. When you do something like that, there is trauma that comes behind it, no matter how much the law wants to make it normal. It's not normal because it's traumatic. So now, while I'm in front of the abortion clinics and I'm preaching and I got all this rah rah in me, I remember getting a flashback of the day I had my first abortion. And I remember those people were in front of that clinic. I didn't understand why they were there. They seemed angry. And I was told to look down and not look at them. And fast forward, here I am in 2019 doing the exact same thing they were doing. But the heart was, oh my God, I'm a witness. Like God was there for me even when I was lost and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was just so oblivious to all the different facets of demonic forces around, just that I'm just falling into because I wasn't protected. I can say I know what it's like to be a child that's not protected. And I have a 3-year-old. So I am such a guardian over her, and me and my husband both, because he has felt like he wasn't protected as well. You want to guard, you want to be a guard to a child's spiritual journey. You want to be a guard to their personality. You want to be a guard to everything that God has for them, because if you don't, you're left vulnerable. You're left feeling insignificant. You might end up having sex at an early age because you don't feel that connection with your father, or you may become a doormat because of the abuse or mental abuse you get from your mother, or the manipulation. So if those things aren't protected, you're going to end up at an abortion clinic. That's just the reality, you know? And so I lived it. And now here I am being delivered, saved, and now doing it. And I'm realizing, wow, oh my gosh, if someone like me could be in that position, that gives really honestly no excuse to any other woman in this world. You could end up growing up like a statistic like me, having 3 abortions, not 1, not 2, 3. But still, at some point, my eyes being opened and willing to just be a voice because I've been there.
And I think that is a very key point that you just made, because when we talk about abortion in this country, when conservatives or people of faith talk about abortions, we have said, you have to understand, this is not just the terrible statistic. These are women who are convinced to have abortion after abortion after abortion. And
Right.
these clinics are making a massive amount of money off of the fact that you have a young woman who has 3 abortions. Your story is not unusual. I think that's the tragedy here. And you knew that. You knew that you realized this is a sad situation, and somebody guided you through that. And here you are. God uses people. He says, this tragedy will not go unseen and unchanged. You are now the person speaking your testimony into other people's lives to change that.
Right. Right. You know, I will say this. I never got so caught up in the things that I was doing wrong that I thought that they were right. Like I'm a very real person, okay? And number one for me is being real with self. If biggest thing in the world, if you don't know how to be real with self, you're gonna have a hard time in life. Because if you can't come to a conclusion with yourself about certain things you're doing, the world is unfortunately going to come to a conclusion for you, and that's the last thing you want, right? So
And that
for
was
me,
kind of the warning you got, was like, you're going to end up dead if you keep living this way.
right, right.
Hmm.
But it was easy for me to receive because I never thought abortion was okay. I never thought, okay, because it's legal, it's okay and it's normal. So even in my sin, you know what I'm saying? If I'm out with my friends and we drinking and we smoking and I'm having sex with men that I am not married to, I'm clearly not walking a Christian walk. I'm clearly not walking a holy walk. So I never in my mind was like, oh, well, it's legal, so I'm doing what's the right thing. No, I was aware that I was living wrong. So when that woman came to me and said to me, if you don't change, you're going to die, I knew where I was going. I knew that if I died in this state that I am, she didn't have to tell me. I knew I was going to hell. I knew that. So it was so easy for me to say, you know what? Let me go ahead and straighten up because I know I'm wrong. She's telling me, she's confirming what's already known. I believe we live in a society today where because of social media and because of the way people talk, and people like to talk in circles rather than just get straight to the point. Everything seems to be these circles. Nothing's never just black and white no more. Everything's gray. And because of that gray, there's no longer a platform to just be real. Yes, you're young, you want to live, you want to have fun, but the reality is it's wrong. It's wrong, right? And so that's what has really pivoted my faith, and it's pivoted me to be the woman that I am today, because I never allowed the enemy to get me so deceived that I'm just now living a lie.
So you changed your life, kind of like it was like a 180 from where you were, because you were on that path of partying and having sex with multiple different men, and you had 3 abortions in that time frame. And I think what you said about the effect of the abortion is probably the most powerful testimony, because I don't think a lot of people are willing to say. Some people have come out and said, boy, this really emotionally damaged me. And that's the thing. In this world, you talk about the black and white and the gray area. Well, the gray area, I mean, I think a lot of times people are too black and white. It's either abortion is good, abortion is bad. And the gray area is that place where you say, you know what? I had an abortion and there was a lot of pain that came along with it. And it's not a welcome comment to, I mean, the left certainly is not going to allow you to come out and say, there was pain that came along with that. And it is something that I think that we have to face the reality that this is happening in minority communities at higher rates than it's happening in other communities. And that means that pain is traveling through communities and going unnoticed and going uncounseled. And that to me is a devastating situation.
Right. I mean, I look at it like this. When it comes to the Black community and even other minority communities, the chunk of abortions that we take up is not normal, right?
Mm.
But a lot of times I find we're looking at abortion. And I mean, listen, I'm the one who stood out for an abortion clinic, right? We look at abortion as an issue, but for me, it's like, why? And that's the part I'm getting to. People knew me as this person standing in front of an abortion clinic, but now, how did I get there?
Mm.
Why was I there 3 times? What's there's a bridge that landed me to this place. And it's like this unspoken thing we're not talking about.
Totally.
First of all,
You're so right. But that's what we always do. We focus on we focus on the after. How did you get there?
right, right. So now let's talk about the music. Okay. Let's talk about the women nowadays. And this is just from personal experience. I know women in my culture, and I'm sure it's in other cultures too, but I'm gonna speak specifically on mine. They do not know how to be beautiful. All they know is sex appeal. Everything
Wow,
is
that's a
driven
powerful
through
statement.
sex.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not sex, it's violence, right? Once upon a time, and Charleston White said this, people think he's crazy, and I think he's a trip, but sometimes he dropped jewels that be like, you know what? I gotta take that. He said, there was a time where women were beautiful. When they came outside, even if you were a bunch of men thugs, you would straighten up real quick. You see a lady, you would treat a woman like a lady. It's as if that culture is gone. Now I'm on social media, I watch women and men fighting like cats and dogs in the streets, and women are outside, butts hanging out, boobs out in a dude's face. Like it's like it's chaos to the point that the femininity and the lady that God called women to be, you don't see it like that. And then the other extreme is you're so religious, you walk around with a plastic bag on because you're holy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that there's no clarity there. So now sex appeal is what's more important, right? In hip hop, it's all about sex. It's all about these things. That I said it to my cousin. I was talking to him and he was like, sometimes women want to do it just like men. I said, well, let me explain something to you. Women are very insecure. Women will shape themselves to appease what they feel is pleasing to a man when they don't have a man to tell them who they are, when they don't have a father to teach them who they are, right? So if I don't have a daddy in the house and I don't even know how to communicate with a man outside of sexual encounters, right? How am I going to know, if I hear a hip hop song and he say, she let me hit it on the first night, it was fire, and he's bragging about it like it's a good thing, this young girl's going to listen to this music and think, oh, okay, well, if I let him get it on the first night, then, he going to think I'm lit. If I do it like this, he going to do, oh, she booty tight, big, boobs big, waist small, booty big. So now guess what's happening? BBLs, lips done. It's so much that is leading towards the abortion clinic, the chop shop. It's going there.
Wow. And so young, these girls are being pushed on. I mean, I have 4 daughters. So I see it with even my daughter. They go to a Christian school in a small town in Michigan, and at graduation, 8th grade graduation, even at the stores that are geared toward middle schoolers, the dresses are so short, everything is sexy, like you said. she was the only girl that wore a long dress. And I said to her, I had parents come up to me and say, hey, thank you. And I said, she chose the dress. And she said, Mom, the next day at school, the teacher said, thank you for dressing like that. And it's hard because it's pushed on them constantly. Sex
Yes.
appeal, sex appeal, sex appeal.
Yes.
And like you said, the lip injections, the change your face, change who you are. You are not good enough. God didn't make you the way you should be. You have to
Right.
improve on that. And that, like, your eyes were open to this. And that's when you became the person on the other side. And I think that's where the movie picks up, right? Is like, you're on the other side. And then suddenly it's interesting because it seems like the pro-woman group of politicians in the country, they suddenly decided that pro-life is not pro-woman, and you were arrested.
Right. I think what the movie displays is not just a story or a testimony of being a Christian and being bold. It also exposes real racism. It really does. I remember saying to the judge that I felt like a Negro out of line during my sentencing. And I felt like I told the judge, I said, you know, if I was half naked and I was jumping around, twirling and shaking my behind, you guys would applaud me. You would celebrate me. But because I am standing here with my husband and my baby, and I am standing in the gap for a community who has been led astray by the deceiver, you guys are wanting to shut me up. And her response to me was throwing me in jail for 3.5 years. And by the grace of God, Trump signed my pardon. So the movie shows a person who was a statistic, who God opened their eyes to see and gave them the courage to stand on their eyes being open and seeing the truth. But then at the same time, because of that, watching a system come down on them so heavy and giving them the fullness of what they could give them without any remorse, the ruthlessness of it, you know? And so for me, it's like this story is going to expose so much. The judge, I'm going to give you intel that I haven't spoken on any interview yet, but I'm going to give it to you, okay? When I got pardoned, I had already been in appellate court waiting for me to appeal my case. And then Trump pardoned me. And Trump becoming president, he basically took over everything. He took over the FBI, anything federal, he basically cleared it out with his people. So now my lawyer had requested that my charges be vacated. I'm pardoned, but really these are beefed up. These are silly charges. This needs to be vacated. The government agreed to vacate. And so then after they signed it, they sent it up to appellate court. And because the government agreed to it, appellate couldn't go rogue on what the government is agreeing to, since they were the ones who initiated the charges under Biden administration. So the appellate court then was like, all right, listen, we're going to go ahead and sign off for her, and we're going to vacate these charges. And now the very judge, Jennifer Roshan, who sentenced me to 41 months and mocked me for my faith, she told me, she looked me in my face and she said, I know you have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, and and I know you're a stay-at-home mom, but it seems like you have a lot of support because of all of these letters that came in for you. So I feel like she'll be fine. This was her response to me before she sentenced me. And it's in the movie, okay? But what's not in the movie is that the case was vacated by appellate court, and she's supposed to sign so that I can travel, because even though you're pardoned, you still are not able to travel to London with a federal felony, and you're not able to travel to Canada. Those things have to be vacated as if it never happened. It has been over a month and a half. She has not signed it.
Wow.
So she has chosen, and it's at this point, it's spiteful delay, but to not even respect the court higher than her to go ahead and sign off on the vacated charges. This is how spiteful this is.
Well, coming from someone who's experienced what that is. So that's what I think that's the important part of this movie. And the movie is going to be out in theaters on August 15th. So, and that's across the country, right?
Right. That's across. So we are waiting now to hear back from AMC. Prayers up that they will release it. They played unplanned. Okay. AMC was the only theater that played unplanned. So I'm hoping and praying they will say yes to us. We also have mom and pop theaters that are releasing us, but also if AMC does, that will kind of make it a lot easier for those who don't know any mom or pop theaters in the area. So we'll know that this week, but definitely on the 15th, it is coming out. And we're just excited, you guys, to go and see this, because my prayer for this movie is that I can bridge the gap between pro-lifers who obviously are pro-life and don't want to see children murdered, but also I want to give them a better insight into the background of people before they land at that clinic, what they go through, so we can bridge this gap of cultural understanding as well as cultural renewal, right? We want to understand the past, right? But we want to also renew the future. And I want to be that girl that these young women see, whether they're Black, white, Latino, doesn't matter, that, wow, if she can be brought this way, right? Watching my mom snort coke and be abusive and different men in the house. If I can come from that to this, you can do it too.
And also just an understanding of that. When I was campaigning, I had people say to me, it doesn't matter how many times you visit our community, unless there are people around you that have lived, whether it's in Southeast Michigan or Southwest Michigan or Northern Michigan, unless you have people around you, if you haven't lived it, you cannot really understand it. And I think that's true. And that's why watching it and having this recreation in a movies are so important. They tell stories. So many people learn history and stories through storytelling, and that's movies. Movies are storytelling. That's the importance of Pardon Me. And I want people to know that you are going to, even if you are a strong Christian conservative who has always opposed abortion, you are going to have a different understanding of that choice after you watch this movie.
Right. Amen.
Well, I am so grateful you came on today. Bevelyn B. Williams, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining us on the Tudor Dixon podcast for this episode and others. Go to TudorDixonPodcast.com, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can watch the whole video on Rumble or YouTube at Tudor Dixon. Join us next time and have a blessed day.